a mouth.
That's okay.
So, all right. So I hope everybody has a copy or has access quickly to the case study because we are going to take roll. So you each get a roll of a person from the case study. So because what we're going to do is we're going to do a meeting as if we come back, from the discussion, from the case, it says that, there's a deadline within a month, right? So we're going to have a meeting before that month is up. So because we actually have more people than there are roles, I'm just going to go left to right. And this is according to my screen, so sorry, guys. Also, if you get a woman, I'm sorry. They said, if you can give them the same gender, that'd be great. I'm the only one that I'm leading, so sorry. So, okay. So, Ben, if you will be Sid Noble. Okay. He was the head of research.
Yeah.
Mark, if you can be Ruth Gibson, the team representative. It's kind of page 2.
Yep, I see it.
Okay. D1, if you will be Miles Hadcock, who is the CFO. D2, if you will be Gus Teller. And James, if you can be Bill Purcell. He's the team leader of the polymers. If we're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes, just review kind of their position. So here's what you're going to review. You're going to review their position. You're going to review what they said about the compensation plan or the pay-based plan, and then kind of formulate what like their reasoning and what actually they want to accomplish. Like if you were them, how would you come back and express what needs to be done? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Kind of, sort of, not really? Okay. Steven, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. My camera's not working for some reason.
Okay. No problem. Okay, because there is an extra person in our group, if you can review the kind of plan section, Verde, where, like the expertise for Motorola and stuff, just review that and see which plan idea is best. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, so like the 4 experts?
Yeah, the 4 experts, yes. Just review what they say and kind of formulate the similarities and differences. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, break. Just kind of give me a heads up when you guys are done and feel confident in that. I was like, I don't want to take too much time, but I don't want to cut it short for you all. So
I think I'm good.
okay. Ben? D2 is good. James, you had a thumbs up, I thought. Stephen?
Yeah, I'm still reviewing.
Oh, okay. We'll give you another minute. And just so you know, it's supposed to be like you are that person, and so be as passionate or as role-oriented as possible for them. That would be great.
Okay.
Use your acting skills.
We have to act. I didn't know this was an acting class. Come on, I sucked at drama.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the pay committee meeting of Top 10. So Sam wants us to review the initial pay plan, as there's been some discrepancies and issues that it's not really well supported. So I want everybody's input so we can create a pay plan that will be best for everyone. So we're going to start out, and you're going to tell me from your department's perspective what you think will and will not work. So Sid, let's start with you. So you got the scientist. You're the brains behind the operation. You come up with the ideas. Why do you think this won't work? What do you guys want for pay plan?
Well, first of all, the scientists are the brains of the operation, and I don't understand why a company-wide pay scale based on teamwork and overall performance should indicate any level of compensation to the scientists. We are the ones doing all the research and making the products, and if we're doing our job well, like, I don't understand how that has anything to do with how the products are being packaged or sold or marketed. And frankly, if we want to attract the best scientists, we're going to need to offer the most competitive wages, and having a payout that is contingent on the overall performance of the company is not going to get us the best scientists.
Okay. So from your perspective, what would be fair compensation or a pay plan that would benefit everyone?
I didn't know that we were doing that.
Okay. Nope. Think about that. We're going to move on.
Okay.
So just so everybody knows, that's kind of the question, because it's for the whole company. So look at your department and and everybody else's. All right, Ruth.
Okay.
You don't like Sid so much. You know, you argued with him in the last meeting.
No, I don't. So my biggest problem with this is similar to Sid's problem, but for a different reason. My problem with it is that it's factory-wide. Why does this have to be, why can't we just do it department-based? Like, my department's been working their butts off. We've seen noticeable and measurable improvements in all these cases, but we haven't seen any kind of compensation for it. I like the pay structure and the way it looks now, but not on a factory level. Because what if the department down the hall is doing horrible? It's like, we have no control over that. What's the incentive for my department, who's working as a team and following all these steps, to actually do anything? We haven't seen any significant raises in the last 2 years. It's like, how is this fair for us to be working our butts off when the guys potentially in the science department aren't doing their job.
So are you saying that it's more important for the egg or the baker type of thing? Like the person who produces the egg or the person who cooks the egg?
I don't think it's important I don't think it really matters. I think it matters that each department is being compensated based on how they are meeting these criteria.
Okay, so are you saying
Like-
that each department should have their own set of criteria, is what you're saying?
Well, that's an option. I'm
Okay.
saying we could stick with the criteria you have now, but break it down into not a factory level, but by a department. Like
Okay.
one department might complain, well, those guys are getting paid more. Well, they're doing better. Tough.
Okay, okay. Miles, aka CFO.
Well, as a CFO of this company, my thoughts are this: that you know, there was a time back then when the company was having to pay higher costs because of the rise in oil prices, and that caused our supplies to spike. And so we need to be looking at compensation, and depending upon how the company is doing, it should be adjustable, because we're taking significant losses at times, and but we see the employees pay as a fixed cost, and under this plan it will be less than 4% of employees' pay is tied to overall performance. So, you know, with the upper management, they have 60% of their pay tied to their performance. So I don't see this as too big of a deal. I think people are making a bigger deal out of it than they realize. But I think that there should be some ownership of performance. And like Ruth was saying, well, if an department, I like the idea that he was talking about with the departments, because if each department, depending upon their performance, then they should be paid accordingly.
Okay, so I have a feeling that's going to be a theme throughout this meeting. So just put into your mind also, if it is based on performance per department, how would you rate that as far as percentage in the business? So just put that in the back of your mind for a minute. Okay, Gus, training.
I'm going to have to agree with Miles, just for slightly different reasons.
Okay.
But I feel like we need to implement this plan. I mean, if you want the whole corporation to excel together, you got to put them all under the same umbrella. Stop segregating them, like the scientists should be making more than anyone else, or Ruth and her department. I mean, we are all trying to get to the same goal. We want to make profit together as a whole. And by doing that, we can cross the departments. We can say, okay, so-and-so is struggling. Let's see what we can do to help them out. We can go out, take them out for some beers, you know, and just kind of relax and get to know each other on a different level. So I'm all for this plan for different reasons, but I think we should press forward. And like I said, it's only 4% of it really depends on your performance. And the rest of it was, you know, based on what your merit is and you know, your position in the job. So.
Okay. So I have opinions, but I will hold them. Bill, what does the polymer department think? You're not unmuted. I'm sure you were speaking words of wisdom.
All right, I don't know where I fit in this whole thing. I work in the polymers department. I'm not a scientist. I'm not the guy putting it out in the warehouse in the truck, but I know what my team can do, and we should be rewarded or based upon that merit. I mean, this pay plan, there's no merits. I mean, there's nothing defining that. So I want to come back to you and say these are the merits that are important to my department, and this is how we're going to measure our reward. But there's still, you want my input overall company, there's we've got the same number of employees that we had 4 years ago. And to make this statement logical, I don't know if there's more business or not, but we've got the same number of people that we've got and had 4 years ago. I suggest we drop the workforce by 15% and let people choose to go. Give them a severance and go through this change. And if they don't like the change after the fact and they still want to quit, they don't get a severance. So definitely think there's more that needs to be added to this.
Okay, so let's take that severance, for instance. You know, what I would consider weeding out. Zappos did a similar thing where they, after the training was done, they said, I will give you $2,000 if you do not buy into the culture, and $2,000 to just walk away. Would that be something that you're like part of your idea for that? To reduce the workforce is a natural progression? Let them choose?
I think that would be a very logical option. I mean, it may be a large amount of money now, but the amount of money that it's already been spoken that we're putting a lot of money into training. If we can get people in here that want to be here, we only have to train them once and then just do a little bit of maintenance training. That's going to save us a whole lot of money in the long run. Okay.
Okay, Stephen, you're the only one that gets to be themselves. What are some of your thoughts on this from the expert?
Well, according to the experts, I think Michael Beer and Tom, they had like really similar views, and I thought that was pretty cool. So he just highlighted some points, like he says, Sam, various action plans lack clarity. And he talked about how like a business or like a company can't follow a plan if they don't really understand what's going on. And then also he mentioned how there's no ownership by either the employees or the development team. So it specifically starts talking about like how different like top Chimps plan was created by Joe Portfield with some input from top and middle management. But no individual groups seem to have developed meaningful targets for what they do. So that's something that they lack. And they keep talking about how the plan is too complicated and it's like more of a takeaway instead of like a gain. And the best suggestion that they give is that Sam Verde should put aside compensation and concentrate on creating an organization and managerial context for teams to work. So he said basically he found that people either work effectively in teams or they don't. And pay is usually a distraction, and it rarely improves teamwork. So that was the expert opinion.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making some notes here. So here's what I want from you guys. I want each of you to tell me what would be the best, what you would consider the best method or suggestion to improve this compensation, this pay plan.
And in our roles or personally?
Kind of both, like distinguish between the two for me. Because, so for your instance, let's take the science department. If you were a scientist, what do you feel your compensation is worth in the overall part of the company? Like what is the most important part of the plan, of the pay plan?
As a scientist, so I guess from Sid's role, I would say I think that the science has has a lot to do with the overall performance of the company. I mean, we're a $2 billion company. We've been around, more than 100 years. And I think if we want to continue to be an elite company, like it talks about attracting the best scientists for the job, we need to be able to afford the best scientists for the job. And so I don't know what the breakdown on the financial spreadsheet looks like is in terms of where that money is being allocated, but I do think that the scientists, and due to their training and due to their experience, and obviously a scientist is going to make more with some kind of postgraduate or post bachelor's degree, they're going to make
Mhm.
more than someone in like Ruth's department. Sorry, Ruth. And I think that that's absolutely appropriate and absolutely acceptable.
Okay.
And I also think that there are, I guess, from my and to kind of support that, I want to just bring up real quick that other reading that we had,
Excellent.
and talking about the difference between labor costs and labor wages, and how they're two different things, and it does actually make sense to, in a lot of cases, to pay more for employees who have been trained at a higher level, and they can work at a higher, more efficient rate with less waste and less wasted time. And so I think that goes to support that. I don't necessarily think, and like it talked about, that incentivizing pay for performance is necessary. But I guess on my personal level, I would think that a plan that was proposed, but for reaching goals, this is saying, like, in order to stay where I'm at my current salary, I need to be achieving this. And in my mind, that's kind of drawing all these questions about, like, upper management questioning my ability to continue to work hard. And why are they making like these contingencies? Have I not been performing? Like, why am I basically
doubt?
Yeah, this doubt that I have to overcome through my performance.
Okay.
And I think at least and I think this is a little contradictory to what we've read, but I think in my mind, I would be much more apt to be excited to work there and incentivized to work there if I was a scientist, a new scientist coming on, if it was like a bonus due to performance, not a contingency to get the salary that's going to be competitive wherever I'm going to go. I could go to another company, be guaranteed this salary, or I could go to Top Chem and have to, I don't know, work my butt off to I don't know, and potentially lose that 4%. And even if it is 4% of $100,000, you know, that's a good chunk of change.
Yep. That's true. Do any of the other departments have any other ideas? I think that's really good that it's put on a performance, as different departments have different expectations and performances. And you brought a good point about education. And whereas the experience and expertise is at a different level.
I just like to chime in. I feel that overall, people need to feel like they have control over this new system. They need to feel like they have some kind of, if you take away people's sense that they have control over their own compensation, why are they going to work for it? Like, they're just going to shrug their shoulders and say, what's the point? I don't have any control over it anyway. Like, it defeats the entire purpose of a compensation-based system. Like, if people need to feel like the work that they're doing matters and actually will benefit them in some way. Like, if they don't, then why are they going the extra mile? Okay. Why would they? So by making it, I think it needs to be tailored to each individual department.
Okay. Okay. Gus, aka D2.
So trying to still stay in the persona of Gus and kind of go method, I was trying to think, like, how would this really work? Because D2 doesn't really believe in Gus's method. But thinking of Gus, like, how can you actually convince people that this is the right way to go? And sorry, I'm in the garage, so the light turns off. There's no movement. But I thought about this class, and I thought we're in a group, and everyone in this group, we're relying on each other to get this A. And I know because of that, you know, I want to do my best to contribute to this group. And I feel that likewise, everyone in this group is doing the same. Would I feel that same way if there was someone that was slacking? I don't know, because luckily this is a stellar group having 7 people in the group. But I thought about it, I was like, how could this plan work in the real world? That it could, but more on the bonus side. So maybe if you said, okay, you have a guaranteed 5,000 or I don't know, excess of $10,000 bonus, company excel X amount. You all get your base pay, but then the bonus is this if you do it together as a company. That's do that for compensation wise across the board, but maybe as a bonus.
Okay.
So that's my only thought.
Okay. Miles, any ideas? Need some brainstorming? AKA D1. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was going to the department point,
Okay.
saying that it needs to be by department, and I agree with Ruth that there needs to be some input from employees before a plan is just made up and forced upon them.
So I agree. Let's not force this upon anyone. How can we create something that can be simplified and understandable for everyone? Bill, any thoughts? James? Are you talking? Sorry. I see lips.
Sorry, I've got a head cold, so I'm a little fuzzy. So how can we make this work? I definitely think that having merit based, right now people get paid upon individual merit. Moving towards a group-based or team-based merit does have potential, but definitely moving towards a company-based merit system where everyone's lumped in together and no one's unique. That's not going to help anyone excel in their individual positions or to help them feel valued. I think Bill alludes to that when he states that TopCamp still has too many people who can't and won't get on board or spending too much time and money to train them. So there's already dead weight there. So I don't think that by trying to lump all that dead weight together with the people who are energetic is going to help it. So.
Okay. So so we're discussing merits, bonuses. So how from an individual versus team versus company, how do you get everybody on board? How do you put it what people may consider it fair across the board in your positions? So Ruth, do you think it's fair that the scientists are tied to this? Do you think that they should be tied to this compensation plan? AKA Mark, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I blanked out for half a second there.
You're
At
fine.
the very
I think
end.
we're all blinking out here and there. We're good. It's the middle of a meeting in the middle of the night. Talking about compensation. Do you think that from your perspective as someone who is in production, to tie yours to something that the scientists do or vice versa is beneficial?
Not at all. We're completely different fields. Like, I think we can agree a little bit with the scientists that they're a different ball game than we are entirely. Like,
but who gives more value to the company?
I think that's hard to determine, right?
Okay.
How do you determine that?
Well,
How?
so that's part of this
break that down, right? You could break that down a zillion different ways. I think the most fair way to do it is you have to make a compensation program for each department, because each department, like, you're comparing apples to oranges. If you're comparing the amount of contribution a scientist gives to the amount of contribution like a production worker gives, apples to oranges, two totally different things. Whereas if you're comparing production worker 1 to production worker 2, well, then you can better understand who's contributing more to the company, right?
Yep. Okay, Stephen, from the expert side, a lot of them disagreed with this plan, obviously, and you pointed out some of the things. How would they create one? Would they recommend individual, team, or company incentive?
So yeah, I was actually reading a little more into what they said. So they said, first of all, they should try to see if pay is an active ingredient in promoting teamwork and motivating performance. And then one of them says, like, there's no evidence that top champs current pay plan is the problem, and they keep going into that, like, maybe it's just like people aren't just working well in teams. So they say, like, people change the wrong things because they fail to identify the root causes of the problem at hand. And they suggest that Verde should really be asking how well teams are working, and if they're not working, he should identify why and be prepared to examine his roles and the roles of top champs teams in creating the barrier. So basically, just analyze the teams and see how they're working together and see if pay is actually going to help in that or not.
Okay. It does. Now, would you recommend putting together a team of scientists, polymer, CFO, like somebody in accounting, somebody in the manufacturing side? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now, okay, so before we wrap up this meeting, just FYI, what will the incentive pay increase? Will the incentive pay increase employee motivation? If not, are there other reasons to use incentive pay? So in other words, is this going to help motivate people in your department? And if it is, why is it? If it's not, why is it? So let's start with science again.
I think it depends. I'm thinking a little bit about the material that we looked at last week. Mm-hmm. And then also some of what we looked at this week. There's a line in that other reading that says it compares labor costs to a lever closest at hand, and managers mistakenly assume it for the one that has the most leverage. And like we talked about last week, I think it's really hard and kind of like what Mark was saying, what the expectation is. If my expectation as a scientist is to be motivated to like innovate and come up with new products, like last week they were talking about pay stifling creativity and that not being an effective way to motivate or incentivize. And everything that we looked at this week, like, I can't help but agree. And so it seems like that's kind of the quick fix. If I want to cut costs as an employer, like, let's just like make some changes to the budget through the compensation. And I don't think that that's really what the problem is.
Okay. So Gus said, does the culture trump all? Well, as a CFO, I want to get your opinion. Why'd you say that?
I was thinking, like, if you think about Google and what they're doing, I think people would take a pay cut just to work for Google. If you find a company where you actually feel valued, or that your ideas are getting into motion, that you want to be where you're valued and your opinions and your work is actually going to shine through. And so I don't know that this company is that way, but we've been 92 years, 93 years strong, $2 billion. Like, we're on the map. So I think people want to stay here for other reasons other than just compensation. And hopefully the company culture is strong enough to attract more people like that.
Do you think creating a incentive committee from across all departments would be helpful to create that culture and to create that incentive pay? Or do you think it would be separate, to keep it as separate departments? Anyone?
I almost want to say that it would be up to the department, but as we've all been sitting here talking, I've got an idea that might fit for everyone. They've got the initial pay that works, their pay that they're getting now. So I'd say take a committee, one from each department, go around and take an evaluation of the different departments and say, this is your current pay, you can keep it. Or we drop it by 5%, I can offer you this group of benefits, additional compensation. If we drop it 7%, we can offer you merit-based pay based upon these characteristics. Drop it 10%, I can, let them choose, let them feel empowered based upon department.
Okay. Well, and I think that goes to the creating the culture, because they feel empowered, and also those who participate are more likely to be the most active in their department anyways. Would you agree? So they would represent because they're the most connected to their department. Usually people who sign up for these kind of committees are the ones that want to be involved and the ones that want to help out the company as well as their coworkers. So I think that's a really good suggestion.
I think that the ones that don't volunteer or don't give input when you come to their department, you're going to identify the dead weight that was mentioned earlier, the people who are just there for paycheck, and you don't want them there to be a productive company.
Okay. So taking away your roles, what do you feel would be the best way? And I think we've hit on it a lot, even throwing in our own personal with the roles. What do you feel would be, yes, I'm off the island. I did not survive. There would be, what do you think would be the best method? Because do we just throw this away, or do we build off of it, or do we kind of scale it back? What are your guys' thoughts as you?
As me, kind of a little bit what I was going on as Ruth. I think we do need to break it down. I like the idea that people are rewarded for performance. I like that in general. But the biggest problems I have with this system are, as I said, as Ruth, that it's factory-wide. We need to break it down to be individual departments, but go beyond that. We need to take it so these numbers seem very arbitrary, and where are they getting them?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, 30% improvement in quality. Research department, how do you measure a 30% improvement in quality? It's like, come on. So I think you need to tailor them to each department. Break it down to each department and tailor them to each department. Because the way it looks now is it's looking like you're trying to do a blanket thing for everyone when you're comparing apples and oranges, like before. It's like everyone's not the same. Not everyone's a scientist. Not everyone's a production person. It's like you can't measure them the same. They have to have different standards or different expectations.
Okay, so here's an idea to go kind of off of that, but yet to add a little extra. What if you as an employee, no matter your position, were given the option to put away 1% of your salary? And at the end of the year, based upon the merit or evaluation, the company would match that 1% with a certain percentage based upon weather. So let's say you made, I'm going to pick a stupid number of $10,000 a year, please. I hope nobody makes only that. But you put 1% away, and we will match that if you did the most amazing and excellent job. Would something like that be a good incentive pay, where it motivates them to, like, gives them more of a number also? Because I think one of the things that employees like to see are numbers. Well, and maybe that's just me because I'm in accounting and I like numbers. So would something like that be a good incentive? D1, any thoughts on that one?
I was trying to follow you. Can you explain that again?
So each employee sets aside in their paycheck 1%. And at the end of the year, the company will match that, whatever that dollar amount is, say it's $500, you get an extra $500 from the company, tax-free, if you met all your expectations, like all your criteria. Or even a percentage of that. Like, let's say you missed a little bit of a production, or you didn't, as a scientist, you didn't create something. I don't even know what scientists would do, particularly create a chemical, but that you would get 475 or 450 instead of that match of 500. So you now have $1,000 extra. Would it be better to match, like, connect it to their salary?
That's an idea. So basically, you're saying that they're going to put away money, and then if they do well, the company will match it. If not, they're going to get basically a bonus at the end of the year.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
It would basically be like a matching bonus.
Yeah.
At the end of the year. Yeah, I think that could work as that, as depending upon how they feel about it, because I would, as far as pay goes and compensation goes, they would have a reason to do better, and they would know that if they do better, then they'll be able to get an extra incentive rather than cutting into their pay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Derek 2 is saying that if it was based on your own merit, then yes. But if it was a company performance, people would not trust the collective efforts. So maybe we scratch that idea, because I think you have a good point there. Stephen, any ideas of whether to keep the current system, scale it back, reevaluate it? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the suggestion you were giving, how, and like what D2 was saying, how it should be based on the performance of the employee instead of a group effort. Because we all know, like, in the company, like, we always want to get ahead, right? And make more money every year. So if we're rewarded by our own performance instead of like what the team is doing, I think it's an extra motivator for someone to do even better at their job than they're normally doing.
Okay, but what for those who like to work in teams and do better in teams than in a corner?
Yeah, and then
see, that's the problem here, people, is this is a huge company. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of people in this pot that you have to consider. So yeah, but no, I agree. And I think kind of what James was saying about getting the committee together, because you would know based upon those departments. James, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I lost it. It'll come back to me in a minute.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Got it. If you're going to base that on employee performance, they would need to be very careful to make those marks that are not based upon the company performance, because company performance is so dependent upon economic forces that are outside the control of the employee. I mean, I was sitting here thinking how I'd implement that in my work. Okay, number of answered phone calls. Most of the phone calls aren't there to answer. How can I set a target of number of answered phone calls? It would have to be something very, very much that's outside of not dependent upon the volume of business, but something that marks individual performance improvement. So I think if they're going to do that based on individual merit, they definitely have to separate it from the company.
Okay.
Maybe two coinciding incentive programs.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So in the last few minutes, we're going to just, because I think some great ideas, and obviously we all have this like utopic idea in our head. Okay, I shouldn't say we, I should say I have this utopic idea that it would work if I did A, B, and C. However, everybody has different motivations. Everybody has different ideas of their own value. So from this case study, what is the one thing that you really took away from it? Looking at the different perspectives of departments. I'm going to start on my screen to the left. So Ben, what's the one thing you took away from this case study that you really hadn't thought of from a compensation pay perspective?
Probably just that how complicated it can be, that it would probably be pretty hard to, if I'm the CEO, if I'm the board of directors, if I can't very well just offer incentives to the people that I think are important or I think are non-replaceable. If I have some really top-notch chemists in this case and I want to incentivize them to stay on board, to keep doing their work, I kind of have an obligation, or maybe I don't, but it seems like I kind of have an obligation to the rest of the company to take care of them, and vice versa. And I don't think I'd ever really considered that before. And also just reading through those 4 opinions from, or 4 other insights, it was just interesting to kind of hear to the contrary. And with that other study that we looked at, that this isn't, compensation isn't the fix-all for company performance. I like what James was just saying, like the performance of the company ultimately there's a lot, I mean, I'm not going to say it has nothing to do with the employees, but like there's so many other factors that go into a company being successful, and economic climate, and just interesting to think about.
Okay. Mark, what did you get out of this case that you hadn't thought of before?
As obvious as it sounds, I hadn't really put much thought into the different needs of different employees. Like looking from top down, how difficult it is to make everyone happy. Like the higher up you get, the more disconnected you are from the detailed needs. Like, and the easier it is, I guess, the higher up you are in a company, the easier it is to just think, okay, let's make a blanket thing for everyone. But if you do that, a lot of little things fall in the cracks, and eventually all those little things create big concerns. So it's something I hadn't really thought of too much. And I'm like, oh, well, it kind of does matter. And it makes it easier for me to see how someone, say at the top, can overlook something that seems obvious to someone who's middle or bottom of the corporate ladder.
Okay, excellent. D1?
Yeah, it's similar to what I was hearing, and, about like how one size doesn't fit all, and how each department and that person in this case had their own view. You know, some agreed, but they had their own view of what it should be. you know, and you need to get feedback, because rather than just putting something together, some plan together that the top agrees with, and then just sending it out to the rest of the company saying, you know, here we decided this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. We hope you're happy with it, accept it, and to implement this, you know. And then they get a backlash, and it doesn't work out, and they decide against it much. And it just goes to show that, you know, you need feedback from all parts of the company, not just to think that the top is going to decide everything, especially compensation for the rest of the company.
Yep, agreed. D2, thoughts?
In thinking of, in Gus's perspective, it seemed like he had nothing to lose. So usually when you have nothing to lose, you're okay with doing something new, something different. You know, I wasn't a scientist in my scenario, so it's like, okay, not a really big loss. Let's have same pay across the board. Hey, I might even get a raise out of this. So yeah, let me keep pushing this, and I can possibly benefit. One other idea I had that could possibly tip the scale is going back to your 1% theory. If you said, if it was based on your based on your merit, and you took 1% and we multiplied it by 2 at the end of the year, if you did good, but let's say we quadruple it if the team does good, would you do that? And then just across the board tell the company you can vote. If it's based on your own merit, we'll double it. If it's based on the company's, you know, performance, we'll quadruple it. See who wins a majority, you know, rules. It'd be interesting to see what people would actually pick.
Huh, that would be interesting. I like that idea. Okay, James?
All right, I just want to say I almost want to agree with Mark that the higher up you get, the more disconnected they are, just because they have to look at things from such a high level. And I hadn't really thought about that when you look at everything that they offer. I mean, really, someone's put a lot of time into that. With this company, though, they've been around for a long time. They've got a culture that's got to be broken as well as redesigned. The article mentioned that it was just a new way of doing business that's been implemented within the last year. A year-old company is not going to change in that short time period. And it's got to change a lot of attitudes first. So a lot of work's got to be put into social engineering.
Okay.
Getting acceptance, I guess.
Okay, I like it.
You gotta sell it.
Never mind. This reminds me of a saying my dad used to say about selling poop. Okay, Stephen, what did you get out of this case?
So what I got out of this case is, like, everyone has their own opinions about compensation, and basically, I don't know. I don't think compensation is the answer for this company at this moment. Maybe later on in the future. But like Mark and James were saying, yeah, once you get up there, like, really high, it's really hard. It's really hard to see everyone's needs from the bottom, and you just have to understand that everyone has their needs and everyone wants to fulfill certain desires, especially money, and yeah, so just we have to learn how to understand each other's needs and see where our goals align and try to work with them.
So I just shared the quote. So essentially, this is what my dad says about it. It's like, no matter what you wrap it in, when you open it, you still have a bag of poop. Meaning that you can put a pretty package on it, but at the end of the day, if it isn't going to work, it isn't going to work. So I think we've all kind of felt that way about this particular case study. Is because we, whether we're at the top of our company or the middle or at the lower half, have seen it.
Not for anyone else but me.
No. Yeah, definitely not
I'm
adding
used to
sugar.
it.
Anyways, sorry, I shouldn't have shared that, but I don't have a filter. It's late for me. Anyways, final thoughts is that it's really about finding value across the board for everybody. So everybody feels like they're contributing, and those who don't want to contribute can just go by the wayside, and it will be a natural progression. As the in-word is right now, it's organic. They will organically leave. Anyways, there's my liberal saying for the day. But anyways, so thank you guys. That was a great discussion, and I appreciate you guys getting into it and helping out with it. So next week, D1, you are leading the discussion. Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys. D2,
Thanks.
send the link. As always, you're amazing. Thank you for your extra help with that.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You
D2,
too.
hang on a second.
I'm still here.
All right. Hey, looks like week 11, you and I are sharing the lead. I have not looked ahead to see what the assignment is. Do you want to lead, split the assignment as one of us leads the discussion and the other does the written assignment?
Actually, okay. I meant to mention that